Have you ever wondered why two ancient lands, Egypt and Ethiopia, are locked in a tense standoff? Most people think it's all about the Nile River, but that's only half the story. The real reason is much deeper, involving a massive dam, national pride, and a strategic chess game playing out in the Red Sea. Let's dive in. For centuries, the Nile has been Egypt's lifeblood. Ancient treaties, many from the colonial era, gave Egypt and its neighbor Sudan the lion's share of the river's flow. Imagine your entire civilization depending on a single water source for millennia. That's Egypt. But upstream, another ancient power, Ethiopia, saw things very differently. For them, the Nile wasn't just water, it was untapped potential. Enter the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, or GERD. This isn't just any dam, it's a mega-project, a symbol of Ethiopia's ambition and its quest for energy independence. With the GERD, Ethiopia plans to generate enough electricity to power its development and even sell the surplus to its neighbors. It's a game-changer, promising to lift millions out of poverty and establish Ethiopia as a regional powerhouse. But for Egypt, this massive concrete structure looming upstream is a direct threat to its national security. Cairo's fears are existential. What happens if Ethiopia fills the dam too quickly during a drought? The flow of the Blue Nile, which provides over 85% of Egypt's water, could be choked. For a nation of over 100 million people living in an arid desert, even a small reduction in water could spell disaster for agriculture, industry, and daily life. Sudan is caught in the middle. While the dam could regulate floods and provide cheap electricity, an uncoordinated operation could also wreak havoc on its own dams and water supply. It's a delicate balancing act with catastrophic potential. But here's the twist that most people miss: this conflict isn't just about fresh water. It's increasingly about salt water, the Red Sea. Look at a map. The Red Sea is one of the world's most critical maritime choke points, connecting Europe to Asia via the Suez Canal. Whoever controls the ports along its coast holds immense strategic and economic power, and this is where Ethiopia's ambitions extend beyond the Nile. As a landlocked country, Ethiopia has long been dependent on its neighbors for access to the sea. But recently, it has been making bold moves. Remember the deal Ethiopia struck for access to a port in Somaliland? That wasn't just a trade agreement, it was a geopolitical statement. By securing a foothold on the Red Sea, Ethiopia is challenging the traditional maritime order long dominated by Egypt and its allies. Of course, Ethiopia owned seaports of Red Sea before 3.5 decades. Think about it. Egypt's Suez Canal is a massive source of its revenue and global influence. Now a rising Ethiopia is establishing its own presence on that very same waterway. It's building new alliances and projecting power in a domain that Egypt has long considered its backyard. This isn't just about water flow anymore, it's about trade routes, naval influence, and a fundamental shift in regional power. For decades, Egypt has been the undisputed leader of the Arab and African world. Its military, cultural influence, and diplomatic weight were unparalleled, but Ethiopia is rising fast. With a rapidly growing population, a dynamic economy, and the GERD as its crown jewel, Ethiopia is no longer just a downstream neighbor, it's a rival for regional dominance. The dam is both a cause and a symbol of this power shift. So, why can't they just find a compromise? It's not that simple. This is a perfect storm of competing interests. For Ethiopia, the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam GERD is far more than a massive infrastructure project. It is a non-negotiable symbol of national sovereignty and a cornerstone of the country's future. Prosperity. It embodies Ethiopia's determination to chart its own path, harness its natural resources, and secure reliable energy for generations to come. Beyond electricity, The dam represents a break from centuries of vulnerability, famine, and dependency on external powers for survival. It is a statement of resilience, ambition, and the nation's right to control its own destiny, sending a clear message that Ethiopia will no longer remain sidelined in decisions that shape its future. For Egypt, guaranteeing its historical share of the Nile water is a matter of survival and national pride, a red line that cannot be crossed. The negotiations have stalled for years, not just because of technical details about filling schedules, but because of these deep-seated issues of geopolitics and national identity. Each side views compromise as a sign of weakness. Ethiopia argues that it should not be bound by colonial-era agreements, that it never signed treaties crafted decades ago between foreign powers. With little regard for the sovereignty or interests of the Ethiopian people, these agreements, many established during a time when Ethiopia had to defend its independence against colonial encroachment, are seen by Addis Ababa as outdated and deeply unfair. From the Ethiopian perspective, they impose artificial limits on the country's ability to harness the Nile's waters for irrigation, electricity generation, and overall economic growth. By restricting access to such a vital resource, these agreements effectively stifle Ethiopia's development potential and deny millions of its citizens the benefits of modernization and improved living standards. For Addis Ababa, the issue is not simply about water, it is about the fundamental right of a sovereign nation to control its own natural resources and shape its own future without being constrained by decisions made in a different era under foreign domination, as Ethiopia had not been colonized. On the other hand, Egypt views the situation as an existential threat. The Nile is its lifeline, providing over 90% of the country's freshwater, and any reduction in water flow could have devastating consequences for millions of Egyptians. For Cairo, the stakes are not just political, they are a matter of survival and national stability. This clash of perspectives, sovereignty versus survival, lies at the heart of one of Africa's most contentious disputes. Add in the escalating strategic competition in the Red Sea, and you have a recipe for a deadlock that feels almost impossible to break. This isn't just a dispute between two countries. It's a story about a changing Africa. It's about how nations are grappling with resource scarcity, historical grievances, and future ambitions. The Nile may be the flashpoint, but the struggle for influence across the Horn of Africa and the Red Sea is the larger, more complex game being played. The outcome will not only determine the fate of millions who depend on the river, but will also redraw the geopolitical map of the entire region for generations to come. So next time you hear about the Nile dispute, remember to look beyond the river. The real story is a complex tapestry of water, power, and pride stretching from the highlands of Ethiopia all the way to the strategic waters of the Red Sea. Thanks so much for watching. What do you think is the path to a peaceful resolution? Let me know in the comments below. And if you found this deep dive interesting, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Green channel for more content that goes beyond the headlines. See you next time.